Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for May 8th, 2026. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler, who's sharing their screen, and Pallavi Singh. So Ralph, go ahead.
Thanks, Benji. We are looking at issue number 3023777. Date time range fields have confusing options for date type setting. Um, the easiest is basically I simply demonstrate the current state and afterwards I switch to the merge request and then we take a second look. That is faster than it's basically at the current state, we have, if you go onto the field settings for a date range field, you have the date type, and there you have the options date and time, date only, and all day. And the description is simply choose the type of date to create. And Um, as Joachim pointed out, when creating a datetime range field, the date type settings offer three options, datetime, blah, blah, blah. The difference between date only and all day is hard to understand. There's currently no UI description explaining how these options behave differently. And I'll quickly check out the merge request. Someone pushed an initial draft. And if we reload the page, go into edit again, um, basically the descriptions got extended. Now you have date and time, store both date and time, then date only, store only the date without time, and all day, treat the range as a full day event starting at midnight. And it has to be noted that basically Joachim just posted a few minutes before the meeting after I asked him some clarification in regards of the difference. And he wrote in comment number 22, yes, the end value, he is talking basically about the all day option, the last one. Yes, the end value is set to 1 second to midnight, send date, set time zone, user time zone, set time zone to 23:59:59. So with all day, you get date times stored with the times automatically set from 0 to 23:59. This is better than storing a date only in cases where you need work with the date intervals. For example, calculating how long the period is, making database queries to check whether sometimes something is in the interval, avoiding overlaps between different terms. So that is basically the outline of the issue. Are there any questions?
Um, so I, I agree. It's a good question. Why do we have the two separate options? And maybe in theory he's answered it, but I'd sort of like to see a more practical example because um, one option that wasn't really considered here is that the way to improve usability is to remove one of the options.
Yep.
Less is more, right?
Yep.
Um, and and maybe some of some of that explanation should be in the user text rather than just talking about a range from midnight to 1 second before midnight. Um, so maybe that deserves a little more exploration. And there's also something else that I noticed. Um, so can you open up PHP and look at your database? If you have the appropriate DDEV add-on installed, then. it'll set up phpMyAdmin for you.
I would use simply SQL Ace,
Okay,
if that's okay.
sure. The only advantage to phpMyAdmin is that you don't have to switch windows. You can just have different tabs in a browser window. But
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
so let's get some data into the field. Can you create a date field with all day and a date field with just the date?
Okay, yeah. 1 second. Okay, that one is state only. Save, and I create another one. Um, again, date range, range 2, continue, and I'll set it to all day there. And I call that all to make it more clear. All day save and uh, oh, and date only.
Right.
Okay, and it's called range. Okay, we go in here, test. Um, let's start on the 6/5/26. 1 day or 2 days or
That doesn't matter.
okay. I pick the identical days for the other one as well. Oh, don't want to last until August. Okay, and save.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's using the US standard for dates separated by slashes, which is month, day, year, rather than day, month, year. So, but that's okay. We're we have a month long thing rather than a day long thing. So I'd like to see how those are stored in the database.
it's node field datetime range.
Um, that sounds about right.
Oh, maybe I should go into PHP in my admin. pdef describe.
I think if you have the plugin installed, then ddev
No, I
php
don't
myadmin
have.
will launch it. Okay.
Uh, pdef list.
Oh, the database table names will be based on the machine name um,
Oh,
of the fields, which you change the labels after creating the fields. So maybe go back to the yeah.
uh,
And if you hover over the edit buttons, you can probably see the machine names.
okay, that one is there, but the range 2 is not there. That is odd.
Maybe you have to refresh.
I already did a refresh.
Hmm.
Oh, oh, I have also to refresh the other one. Okay, now we are getting there. Okay, okay. We don't PHP my admin. Okay, okay.
And
Range,
can you zoom way in because the text is awfully small? But okay,
it's
I can see it barely.
range.
Yeah, that's there. That's the part I want to see. So that's the The value stored in the
We are looking
database.
at field range, which is the date only.
Yes.
That is date only. So we have bundle name, delete, entity ID, revision ID, line code.
Right. It's the 2026 06-05 and 2026 07-05. I think that's a 5.
Yeah, it's a 5. And the other one, okay. As you can see, okay. It has basically the time added after the date as well.
What time does it have after the date?
Uh, 10 p.m. is
Ooh,
on the first. I guess it's due to the fact that it's a UTC +2.
that's right. I bet your site's default time zone is
Yeah.
is UTC +2.
Oh God, time zones. Traumatic memories come up from that other issue. Oh my God. And yeah, the other one is 9 p.m. 59:59. So 21:59:59 is the
So
time.
if we read these database entries as UTC timestamps, then they are midnight in your time zone to a second before midnight in your
Yeah,
time zone.
exactly.
And I wonder what would happen if you went back to Drupal
Hmm.
and edited your account and chose a different time zone.
You're devious. I go into that
And
one.
this is an experiment I haven't done, so I don't know what'll happen.
Mm, Let's go to what is something.
Well, the simplest thing is just to make it UTC if you can. Is that at the top of the list?
No, it's only about regions here. So let's pick something in the US. Because that way it's definitely a significant difference.
So New York would be. If you just type N a few times, it'll probably.
New York. Okay, and now
Make a second node.
again 6, 5, 2026, 7, oh, 5, 2026, 6, 5, 26. Oh, and 7, 5, 2026. Oh, ah, save. Uh, test New York. Oh, okay.
It's your time zone. So New York is we're in daylight savings time, so we're 4 hours behind UTC. So our midnight is 4 a.m. UTC. Yes. Um,
Oh,
so the question is it worth mentioning, warning people about time zones in the user interface text when they're adding that field.
Um, that reminds me again to that other issue, if you remember, a few months ago, that was about default values for a date field.
I think it was more than a few months ago, but yes, I remember.
And I always wanted to basically pursue and write up a few more issues stemming from that because that is in the interface, it's not clear at all, to be honest. And it's another case here. And to be honest, ha- oh, wait a second. Huh? Ah, no. The font was too small for myself as well, and now I see it. No, no, it's correct. It's the false. Huh? Nee, wait a second.
I think it says T04.
Yep, but 1 second. Oh, mm,
And again, '06/'05 means sixth month, fifth day,
yep, yep.
which is
That's
the,
the thing I stumbled across right now. Okay, now it makes sense again. Okay, yeah. Those different time formats in combination with time zones make it real thin ice. Okay, but one question I would have, isn't it problem exactly it's an odd case, but isn't it problematic? Because the first one here that was created with basically the time zone set to Berlin. The
yes.
second one was created set with a time zone to New York. Um, from my perspective, isn't it real? It that is, I think, the one detail from back then that I consider important is, wouldn't it be important to also add the time zone a date is added? Because and already with an example like that, if for example a user is changing their time zone, um, strictly speaking, that value would have to be updated. Or you don't know even and without that point of reference, and let's say you don't have only two date time values, but let's say 1000, and somebody is, for example, traveling across the world. They have their website and they change their basically their time zone every few days or weeks in between the cities they reside in for the time being. And that way, the point of reference is completely missing here. And that way makes those entries even more problematic. Not sure I was able to communicate my problem properly, but
And and I think you're example of a person traveling all over the world is less common than the example of a website that's used by people in a wide variety of time zones. Like certainly the
Yep.
continental US has four time zones. And if you include Alaska and Hawaii, it's more. And of course, there are certainly worldwide websites, and people can have individualized time zones. And if they're looking at each other's events, um, they're going to see different things.
Yep.
Um, so so I think the time zone is and how it's shown to different users with different personal time zones is a more significant thing to call out than the things that Joachim mentioned that
Yeah.
depending on what sort of database query you're going to be using. So I I kind of think that the help text should mention time zones.
Yep. Or, or circling back to your initial point you've made that removing options it should also be considered an option. I tend to think basically that, oops, I'm unable to change it now. Date range. That basically date only, is it really necessary? Because it's simply imprecise. And if you have basically a date with a fixed starting time, or basically a date with the all day.
So if you're going to have a calendar with an event for May Day, May 1st, and New Year's Eve, December 31st, then probably the date only is appropriate. And different people with different time zone settings will look at your event and they'll see May 1st, they'll see December 31st. Whereas if you set it to all day and the person creating the event is in GMT plus 11 and the person looking at it is at GMT minus 11, um,
Oh,
they're going to basically be off by nearly a day. Yes, these would be two people on either side of the international date line, I guess.
yeah.
So I can definitely see a use case for date only without
Okay,
the
yeah.
time zone confusion.
Okay. You have a point. Okay, then. Um, one technical question I wonder about, is it possible to have, based on the chosen select option, to have a differing description? So if you basically select date only, that you only show that string here. If you select daytime, that you show that here, and so on.
Oh, you're suggesting that we put an example value in the help text?
No, not in the help text, but instead of having 3 lines of a description here, um, adjust the description dynamically based on the chosen
Oh, I
option.
see.
that was basically the thought. Because having all that in here and also prefix it with the option label.
So presumably we would base it on the current time. So with date only, you would get 2026-05-08.
Yeah, an example as well. Yep.
So I think that might be confusing. I think I'd like some sort of description along with the example. So maybe right instead of the three lines that are always there, just have one line, but still have some version of the description there. So date
Yeah.
only colon and then what would be stored.
No, I would keep the description. I just meant not have three lines of description, but a single one that is for the selected option. That was the thought I had, if that is possible in the admin UI.
It it should be possible. I mean, it's
Okay.
just an Ajax callback or something, or not even that. A show a form state thing.
Okay, then I'll copy that one in. Just in regards of wordsmithing, the current state is the following. What would be uh, do you two think the current state is okay, or should it improved in a certain way?
So first of all, I think it is an improvement over uh, what Drupal currently has.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess the current description is just a single line. Choose the type of date or something like that. I think if you,
Yeah,
I posted my site in the Zoom chat.
there it is.
You can use that. Let's see. Did
It's loading. Yep, now
I
log in.
I may not have enabled date time range yet in this.
I can do it if you haven't yet.
No, I just did.
Okay. Then, oops, I'll simply add it to the recipes. Daytime. Yeah, choose the type of date to create is the current. Uh, Okay. Um, how about So state and time. And is the direction to shorten basically the first two and adding basically an example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, are you currently thinking of having all three lines all the time, or just one of the three lines?
At the moment, I simply went with all three lines at the same time.
Okay.
But personally, I still think if you would make it dynamic, then you could basically, 1 second, I copy that underneath. Then you could basically drop that label
Right.
and make it that way.
And for the last one, I think you'd have to put in the end time as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that way I struggled a bit how to make it concise and brief.
So I would put in parentheses to be consistent, and then say that to
Uh, 1 second, let's make it a bit more clear. And 23, 59, 59, something like that.
I would want to have the actual
Oh,
time zone.
okay. Oh, the actual of the user, that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So basically the example is then dynamically created.
yes. So that and that's a pretty common pattern that yeah, things either default or use placeholder text based on the current date and time and time zone.
Okay.
And then I again I do think we need to mention the time zone. Um, treat the range as a full day event starting at midnight. After midnight, I would say in the user's time zone. And then since that's obviously too long, I think we can remove a bunch of the text at the start, treat the range as.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Mm. Strictly speaking, you also have a range with store date and time, and stores the date. In each of those cases, it's also the beginning of a range. So
so I don't think we need the word stores. Date and time, and then date only.
that's basically um, the option label.
I suppose so. Yeah.
But again, in the context of date and time, the time zone is relevant there as well. Date and time in the user time zone, in the user's time zone.
Yes. Is time zone one word or two words?
Good question. Oops. One word.
Yeah, I think that's right.
A- And that is one thing I always fail in English. Does users need an
Yes,
apostrophe?
it needs an apostrophe.
Okay.
That's for possessive rather than plural.
Because sometimes the apostrophe is also afterwards, and that is the thing I really struggle in English. Okay.
That's only for if it belongs to multiple people, then you want the plural and then the possessive.
Okay. Okay, so date and time in the user's time zone. How about only the date
I would say date only.
or date on? Okay.
I mean, as you said, I'm reducing it to what's in the label, and so let's use the label.
But if you have an announcement in the screen reader and let's say you have that dynamic description, so only that single line is getting announced, then you have basically you choose date only and then you get a redundant date only and then the timestamp example with 26:06:04. And same for, let's say, sighted users. You then read the option date and time, and then you have date and time redundant again in the user's time zone. That's sort of suboptimal.
So if this third block is what we're thinking of having just one line dynamically selected, then maybe we should just say example.
Hmm.
And probably our example should be um, a range in all three cases.
But the gist basically that is, let's say you pick the date range example you've set. With that date time, you have the starting time on the day on a particular time, let's say 4 p.m., while the starting time for that all day is um, midnight. And that is probably not necessarily clear, in particular if, oh, how about to communicate a gist as a description first, and then have basically the date range example. So let's say for the first date and time, you say um, bespoke starting time, and then example 2626 64 T, let's say 1950, 50, 50, something like that, and 2 26 06 04 or 5, again an arbitrary time somewhere during the day. And with date only, then that could be kept maybe. And the gist for the other is basically the starting time is at midnight.
Yeah,
And
I
the
would
last,
use current time uh, for the first option. So, so right now it's 14:47 some seconds in UTC.
um, let's say, use the current time of the user entering. Oh no, not entering, of the user
Creating the
setting
field.
up the field or creating, yeah.
Yeah, and in all cases, I would make it a full day. No, 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 not 16, 14. because it's
40.
1448.
Time zones. Okay.
And it is confusing, but the idea is that if the person doing this stares at that and they say 14, why is it 14? At least they have a chance of realizing, oh, it's because that's a UTC timestamp. It's not, even though I think it's 1648. In
Mm.
UTC, it's 1448.
Oh,
And
this is
and
starting to
that's the
explode.
advantage of using the current time. It's something identifiable.
Yeah.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes left. I would actually like to take a break from this and have a quick look at the other issue that came up because I think that's really sort of an administrative question. We can get through it quickly.
Not so sure. There are a few points. 1 second, I'll change Git branch. Uh, Media library, that's the one. Git checkout. Okay. Um, oh, that's the wrong one. Yeah.
Oh,
It's media.
no, I was actually thinking of the inline form errors issue.
Oh, the inline form errors. Okay.
And you don't need to do a demo of it. Just look at the issue.
Mm. It's issue number 2915899. Enable the inline form errors module in the standard install profile.
Right. So this issue is postponed, and it says right there in the issue description what it's postponed on. No, right at the top.
Oh,
It's postponed on two issues, one of which is fixed, but the other of which is not.
the still open issue is issue number 2848507.
Right. And if you open that up, indicate that grouping elements have child element errors for usability and accessibility. Um, and I did post a short comment on that issue about 4 years ago. And if you look, one of the issues that references it is the usability meeting from there it is. See, it's so easy to spot my avatar. And I guess I didn't get an answer to that question, although a couple of people updated the patch a few times since then. Um, but the real question is if you so, so, so the issue we started on was should we make inline form errors part of the standard profile? And the answer is yes, we should, but we can't do it until this issue is fixed. So this is the issue that you should be concentrating on if you're interested in making inline form errors part of the standard profile. And then once this issue is fixed, you can say, well, are we going to have a standard profile or a standard recipe and which one is going to have it and which one isn't, yada, yada, yada. But the current questions are, should it be in the profile or the recipe? And my answer is don't bother to ask that question until the actual issue that's blocking it is fixed.
Um, that one I agree, but there are other problems as well.
Oh,
Um, Over the last few days, Ken Richards, who posted basically the issue on the UX channel a few days ago, and we discussed a few related issues in the context of accessibility, and there are more problems aside the one. If you, for example, let's say fields in core, um, there are a few questions at the moment. I guess it was the image. Yeah, the image is one of them, and I guess the other is, yeah, the media. Those two, the anchor links don't work. Then also the focus outlines don't work on a handful of those field types. You only have that red outline, but if you click, for example, start date, this is one of the examples. Let's say plain shot. Yeah, that is the correct behaving one. That way you get basically the red outline and the green outline. That is not the case. Then you also have the problem that um, error messages are not programmatically associated with the input fields. That way they have IDs, but the EIDs are not added to the area described by. That is another problem. And there's also, from my perspective, from a usability perspective, the problem at the moment you have that list, then you go there, you fix something, then you have to scroll up again, you find another one, scroll up again, and that is something I wanted to create an issue for, but because to have some sort of stepper that basically if you go in here that you have after that thing a stepper that you say jump to the next or to the previous error that you can basically step through, solve something, those things. And the problem is, from my perspective, how I understood it, and I also talked with Mike Gifford, um, inline form errors module last got really worked on a few years ago when it got into core as and got stable. But since then, I think it was him, Daniel. Um, he was the subsystem maintainer, and he is not really working with Drupal anymore, and therefore there is not much or no work at all happened in the context of inline form errors, and therefore it might need a bit more review, and there might be a bit more issues aside the one it's postponed on.
okay. So there certainly may be other things that should be fixed. I would suggest that your idea of a stepper is an enhancement, a feature request, and I don't think that should necessarily block it. I think this issue should definitely, or the one that's currently blocking it should definitely block it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and a clear bug like those anchor links not working um, should probably be fixed before it's considered for being in standard. But I think once we're happy with how well the module works, I think it should be added to the standard install profile or recipe. We can decide
Yeah.
which of those or both. is right. But first the actual problems have to be fixed.
Yeah. But that stepper is basically in regard of I'm blanking on the success criterion, but the bypass blocks success criterion. So it's basically an accessibility bug, not really a feature request. It's an improvement, but still it's a block for some people. So it falls under the accessibility case, strictly speaking.
Okay.
And therefore,
I mean, also you're looking at a sort of extreme case where there's more than a dozen errors, and I
yeah,
think that's not very typical.
that's for sure. But just that case was simply I wanted to basically audit the behavior of all the available fields in core, and that was the only way. And yeah, I've used it simply also to illustrate it. But yeah, in general, yeah, inline form errors is definitely a necessary one. And ideally, I would even say inline form errors should cease to exist and move it into the form system itself. Because that way it would be avoided that people either don't know that it exists or uninstall it and so forth. All that
Okay.
behavior is simply best practice.
Okay, that certainly seems like something worth discussing, and maybe, if it were perfect, then probably there would be no objections to doing that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a question of how close to perfect it has to be before we do that. But we are at the end of the hour. Um, and so let's either you or I or both can post comments on the date time issue, and we'll think about it some more, and at least bring up the point that time zone is really important. And maybe Joachim or others or you or I can come up with a firm recommendation. We can talk about it again later. Great. Thank
Oh,
you both for coming.
thank you. Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
And stop there.
Bye.
Okay, have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye.